We now have a corporate presentation by Thrivikram Gadam, co-founder and CTO of Alohaa.ai, which is the new face of BSFI, which is also a conversational AI. So can we please welcome the co-founder and CTO of Alohaa.ai. He's here. Let's give him a huge round of applause. Come on, guys.
Talking with you guys about AI and its use cases. My name is Thrivikram. As you mentioned, I'm CTO and co-founder of Alohaa. We are building next generation of cloud telephony and especially focusing on voice bot creation. Today I'm going to talk about the next 10 to 15 minutes. It's going to be a shorter presentation. The next 10 to 15 minutes, I'll talk about conversational AI and how it's going to redefine BFSI and banking segments. Without further ado, let's get started, guys. I would like to start the presentation with the evolution of banking. Long ago, around 30 years back, where we don't have access to smartphones, where we don't have access to artificial intelligence and cloud computing. How do we interact with the banks? Usually we go to banks, stand on the line for a longer duration of time, fill the forms, and talk to the manager or talk to the person who is concerned, who is responsible to take your queries and answer your queries. In this case, especially, you are physically going to the branch, right? You are going to the branch and talking to the person. Who is your interface in this case? The person is going to be your interface. You are talking to the person. That's the era we call it as human interface, which means you are talking to the person. There are fundamental constraints with the human interface. Can you guys guess what are these constraints? This is called memory and computation. These are the limitations of the human, right? I can memorize only certain things. I can't memorize everything. As a customer, you are asking me certain questions. Certain questions I have the answers. I can immediately respond. Whereas for certain questions, I have to go back and check the system to give the answers, right? Similarly, I have another constraint called processing speed. As a person, I can't process 100 million transactions like a computer. If 100 people are sitting or standing in front of the line, I can answer only certain questions. Probably on a daily basis, I can't answer more than 100 people. That's a limitation of the person. That's a limitation of the processing speed. That's the era we can call it as human interface. Let's fast forward ourselves into the generation of apps where we have the accessibility to the applications. These mobile applications, without any doubt, they can process millions of transactions per second. Similarly, they can store unlimited data. With the emerging technologies like cloud computing, we definitely solve the problems that we spoke about in the human interface. This particular era, we can call it as graphical user interface. In graphical user interface, we have access to the mobile applications. The advantage of mobile applications are visually these are appealing. We can attract the customers. And in terms of processing speed, in terms of memory, we don't have any constraints like we mentioned about the human interfaces. However, still they have certain constraints compared to natural language interface. This is an evolution we would like to focus more. So as I said, graphical user interfaces or applications still have certain limitations or constraints. I would like to take an example and illustrate more on this. Assume that there is a loyal customer. Let's call it as Rama for the sake of just conversation. Assume that Rama is one of the loyal customer in your bank. He wants to apply a credit card for his son. Let's call it as Krishna. He wanted to apply a credit card as an add-on credit card. So he called to AI bots. These AI bots will help Rama to process the credit card information. The conversation goes like this. AI bot will ask certain questions or sequence of questions to Rama saying that, what is the name of your child? what is the email ID, what is the mobile number of your child. And Rama certainly gives all this information. Post this information, the AI bot will ask additional questions saying that, do you want to activate certain restrictions on this particular card? As a responsible parent and probably as a strict parent, Rama wanted to put and enforce certain restrictions. Probably he want to activate this particular credit card with certain limitations like, hey, I want to activate or function this credit card between 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And artificial intelligence or the AI bot would enable these restrictions. Post that, this AI bot will ask subsequent questions. Something like, do you want to enable certain limitations on the card? And Rama said, yes, I want to enable max cap as 1,000 rupees per day and max cap as 10,000 rupees per month. He can put these kind of limitations. And also, I want to activate this card or function this card within certain geographical location. Maybe take example, he is studying in IIT Bombay. He want to enable this card within the premises of this IIT Bombay. So as an intelligent bot, this bot can configure all the requirements that Rama has mentioned. After this, it will go through some backend validations and dispatch the card to Rama. Imagine the same example without this bot. Assume that if you wanted to go with traditional applications, how do you do it? You would have to enable a form and ask these questions. Once you fill these details, you have to navigate to the next form. And after filling these details, again you have to go back and to from multiple applications, right? It would require navigation between multiple screens, and also it would require multiple clicks. Do you guys see any fundamental difference between the approach one that I mentioned, the one which is using AI bots, the second one I mentioned with the traditional applications? If you keenly observe, the fundamental difference between these two approaches is, in the first approach that I spoken about, the apps, the app is driving the behavior of the user. App is the conductor here. App is dictating you. You have to fill this. You have to go to the next screen. Whereas if you go with the conversational AI, you are dictating the functionality. You are giving the information. So it feels more natural, right? It feels more natural, and we are very good at speaking. Since we born, or maybe after completing 3 to 4 years of age, everybody know how to speak, right? So speaking is more natural than navigations. So which brings me to the first important observation. Behind the scenes, when you guys are using apps, there is a lot of cognitive load. However, when you go with modern applications like artificial intelligence, natural language processing, or conversational AI, zero cognitive load. That is the first fundamental difference. Let me before talk about the second difference, I would like to give you one example. When you go to a restaurant, maybe with your friends, group of friends, and how many times you notice that every one of you order the same item? Hardly rare, right? Everybody would order different items. What is the fundamental reason for this? You like something else, and probably your friend likes something else, because the taste is different. The same analogy applicable for fashion goods, right? Somebody likes black color, somebody likes pink color, somebody likes red color. Whereas somebody likes one pattern, others like different styles altogether. What is the fundamental reason behind this? Again, the taste. So the food that you eat, the apparels that you wear, the gadgets that you have, or the jewelry that you have, it could be anything, right? Everybody wants different taste. Everybody needs customizations. That's where the interesting factor is the hyper-personalization. I think in the last presentation, some of the panelists also spoken about this hyper-personalization. I think Farooq and Pramod also spoken about the same, and glad to bring this point. So in the case of hyper-personalization, everything is customized according to the customer behavior, right? In the example that I mentioned, from 300 rupees food, probably like 1,000 rupees apparels, everything is customized. However, since it's been decades, we are using the legacy applications, and most of them, whether you are using the application or I am using the application or she is using the application, the flow is identical today, right? The navigation that you do and the navigation that I do, the flow that is generated for you and the flow that is visible to me, exactly identical, right? Now this is the time we have to customize that according to the customer behavior. And glad that this conversational AI is doing that. In the case of conversational AI, this is unique because based on my prompt or based on my context or based on my query, I am getting the response. The same questions that you ask, based on the context, based on your information, you are going to get a different results. That's called uniqueness. So using this hyper-personalization technique, we are going to bring a simplicity as well as uniqueness to the customers. This is the second important observation or second important pillar of this conversational AI. To talk about the third fundamental pillar, I would like to take another example. Last month, my credit card bill got surged by 2x. I went to my transaction history and checked the details and identified that after analyzing for 30 minutes or so, I found the reasons that because of so and so reasons, my credit card bill was 2x. What if there is an intelligent AI which would hear my questions behind the scenes? It would be plugged to LLMs or large language models, or it could be like model context protocols. Whenever I ask certain questions, depending on the context, it should be able to answer my questions. In this case, probably I would just call to AI agents or AI bots. I would ask the same question. Why did I get 2x bill, credit card bill, compared to last month? This AI bot will immediately say that because of this so and so reasons, you got double the bill. Immediately based on the first answer, I'm going to ask the second question. Can you please categorize into segments? And probably this AI has enough intelligence and enough knowledge, enough RAG attached to this artificial intelligence systems. So this will pull the information and send it to me. So there is a sequence of questions and series of questions that is happening to and fro between me and the bot. So that brings me to the last point, that is called dynamism or dynamic nature. Depending on my context and depending on my question, I'm going to get the response from the AI bot, which brings me to the last point called dynamism. So these are the three fundamental pillars which makes unique and natural and dynamic. These makes difference compared to regular applications with conversational AI bots. Now let's talk about where are we really using these bots? What is the real applications, especially in the case of BFSI industry? I can think of majorly three properties or three different places where we can fit exactly these voice bots. One is called sales, customer support, and recovery. Let's take another example and explain each property. Assume that you want to train a sales agent. It would take a month, right? After training your sales agent, if the customer asks certain critical questions or the questions which are not given in your facts list, it would be very harder to answer the questions. However, if you train a bot and give the information or give the knowledge, keep it in a database or keep it in a rack system and plug it to your bot should be able to answer to the customer questions on demand basis, right? Depending on the situation, depending on the context, it will try to fetch the information from your knowledge base and try to give the answer to the customers. So you can completely eliminate the sales teams, or probably you can partially remove the sales teams using AI bots. Another interesting application is customer support team. I think in the last discussion, some of the participants mentioned that he has to go through multiple IVR calls, or probably after speaking like 10 minutes in the home loan department, maybe the call got disconnected, right? What if you have an efficient person in your company who is going to work for 24/7 and he know all the languages and he don't need any rest. He can work on the weekdays, he can work on the weekdays. That is nothing but our artificial AI agent, which is designed for customer support team. Irrespective of the time, irrespective of the date, irrespective of the language, it is able to answer your questions. That's the primary advantage of these AI bots in the case of customer support team. Last but not least, it is helpful in the recovery industry. In recovery industry, one limitation that I can see, One major limitation that I can see today is customers try to barge the calls or customer try to disconnect the calls. They will take the loans, but they will try to escape from you. If you go with the traditional applications, your agent is sitting in front of the desk and trying to make the calls several times. In spite of that, customers would not answer the calls. What if you can employ a bot? It doesn't have emotions. Periodically, it will call to the customer and try to recover the amount. So these are the three different properties or use cases I can think of very useful in the case of BFSI and banking domains. So let's take a moment and talk about what is the future of BFSI. Today, what we build in the banks are digital banks. Now this is a time we have to give it a voice. We have to give it a brain. It should be able to listen our customer voice and should be able to process that information and try to answer to the customer on the spot. So what we have built is digital banks. Now this is a time we have to humanize it with a human voice. So banks that are going to listen, think and process and speak, they are going to win in this race. Last but not least, I would like to think before leaving one particular question: what is the world's best interface? And the answer is going to be, it's just conversation, no interface. According to me, based on my research, in the next couple of years, all the interfaces are going to die because the natural language interface is going to be the best interface. Because everybody knows how to speak, it is easy, and it is hyper-personalized, and it is dynamic according to our needs. So who are going to adopt to this particular technology are going to win in this race. So I'm going to take another 1 minute before concluding the session just to talk about at Aloha what are we offering. In Aloha, we are creating voice bots along with voice streams. I will tell you one difference between voice bot and voice stream. Assume that you have already built in your voice bot, right? You just want to plug that voice bot to your telecom lines and initiate the call to your customers. That's when we can use the technology called voice streams. Using voice streams, we can plug to your voice bots without changing your convention, without changing your knowledge. Still, we can approach the customers. That's what voice stream is. And second interesting use case that we are solving is AI dialer. The traditional dialers today that we are using are static in nature, which means they make the calls, they can disconnect the calls. However, depending on the pickup rates, depending on the customer behavior, depending on the agent abandoned rate, we are able to match these attributes and dynamically spin the calls. It's an AI dialer that we have. Last but not least, one interesting factor or one interesting property that I would like to emphasize here is AI quality control. So oftentimes what happens is when you are talking with your customers, sometimes customers may get irritated. The conversation would go heated, right? In that case, generally what happens, after listening to the call recordings, right, you approach the customer and you try to offer certain coupon codes or you try to convince the customer and try to make him on board again. You try to cool down the customer. That is the purpose of the managers today. That's what's happening, right? With this particular AI quality control, during the call itself, we'll try to analyze the sentiment. We'll try to analyze the tonality of the customer. If there is any offensive language that is between the agent and the customer, we will flag that call. As soon as we flag that call, we'll immediately send a message to the respective floor manager. The floor manager would immediately jump onto the call and try to minimize the damage. With the traditional system, damage has happened. Post that damage, we are trying to convince the customer. Whereas with this AI technology, we are trying to control the damage during the call itself. You are talking with the customer and trying to answer and make him cool. That's the innovation that we have. This is called AI quality control. Last but not least, in the case of recovery, many of us know that customer would not answer the call. They will try to botch the calls. They will try to discard the calls. So the product that we created is called Recovery X. With the Recovery X product, every single time you make a call to your customer would receive a call from different DID number. As a result of that, the pickup rate will go significantly higher. So we did a deep research on recovery, especially what are the major challenges in the recovery, and we are losing every year billions of dollars as the customers are not answering the calls. So as part of our research, we have created a playbook. We have created a book with all the guidelines, what you need to do to improve your pickup rates and what you need to do to recover the money. So if you guys are interested to get these tips and tricks, feel free to grab this book at our counter. We are happy to share this book. So with that, I would like to conclude the session. If you have any questions, probably I'm happy to answer. Can I have water? Water.
Okay. Any questions, guys? Any questions?
Please to visit the counter. I think that was a fantastic presentation. I mean, AI conversing with you and getting all the recovery done is fantastic, because I know human beings calling another human beings, and it just, the heat gets on, the frustration gets on. Can we please give him a huge round of applause? What a product. Thank you so much. I would request Ms. Shraddha Bhosle to please come up on the stage, who is the CEO and founder of Krypton India, to felicitate the co-founder and CTO of Alohaa.ai. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, let's encourage this talent. Let's encourage more such innovations in the fintech industry coming in.